Okay, let's start the second half of the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. Can you hear me back there, Roxy, or is it really low? Is it loud enough? All right, Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, I'd like to introduce our main speaker, Renzi. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Renzi. I'm an alcoholic.
Renzi.
Let me adjust this thing first. Is it all good? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe a little? Okay, let me get you
Yeah, nice to see you all, the Fred brownies.
Hang tight for just 1 sec. Let me get you a little bit louder. Okay.
It's quite natural that I like brownies, you know. I was born in India. If you haven't figured it out yet. No. Surprise! But you know, I'm not the 9/11 kind. I'm the 7/11 kind. So don't worry about me. If you look at the map of India, you know, there is a bottom tip that goes into the ocean. That's where I'm originally from. There is a state called Kerala, which is the southern part of India. I grew up there. At the age of 28, I moved here. And so until then I was living in India. I grew up in that part of the world, and I grew up in a village. You guys call countryside here, but we say village. You know, the home I grew up in was like the local club for that village. And the time I was growing up, when I was a kid, like, that house was pretty much in that area the only house with TV. So the other people in that neighborhood would come to our home to watch TV. And there is like weekly movies and stuff like that. No cables. No cable networks. It's just the public channel that shows you a movie every week. And so they would all come and watch it, watch news and stuff like that. A lot of people would hang out. And my dad was into politics. So, you know, doing social works and stuff like that. So a lot of them would come there and hang out, read news and stuff like that. Even with telephone, man, like, there are a lot of people from that part of the world where their loved ones are working in somewhere in the Gulf countries, like in the Middle East or something. So when they want to call, they would call and say, like, this certain day, like Sunday, for example, Sunday 4 o'clock, I would call, will you let my wife know? And they would come and wait there. And they talk and things like that, you know. But it just to say, like, that was the atmosphere I grew up in. It was great. I learned to respect people, love people, all kind of people. I would hang out with, you know, different type of people. But there was a flip side that was not that great. And so some of these young guys who would hang out there would sexually abuse me when I was a little kid. Like when I was 3-4 years old, it started, and one of them would do it for a long time, for years. And the culture is like, you cannot really talk about it. You cannot talk to anyone about it, you know. And that's just part of, I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but when I became a teenager, I was extremely rebellious. I hated anything that had to do with authority figures. Like, I hated police, I hated court, I hated teachers, I hated parents. Any authority figure, I hated. And I was extremely rebellious. I like to say, you know, I was born in rejection and grew up in rebellion. That's kind of my young time period was in my life. And then when I was 14 years old, I would grab a handful of poison and I wanted to kill myself because I hated everything about myself. Now, back then I thought I hated myself, you know. Now I have a different perspective because it's not really true. Nobody hates themselves. It's actually we love ourselves way too much, you know. So, you know, I wanted to, I hated my color, my hair, even my first name. So I would, later on when I go to college, I would introduce myself with a different name. You know, it's to that degree, I hated everything about my life. So at the age of 14, I wanted to kill myself. I would grab a handful of poison and I would eat it. And I ended up in a hospital, intensive care unit for 3 days, unconscious. I was in the ICU. They said I'm going to die or come out with permanent damage to vital organs. But neither happened. You know, God clearly has a plan. Then when I was 16 years old, I was introduced to alcohol. And the crazy thing is, like, before I took my first drink that day, I was already an alcoholic. The reason I say that is because I planned that drink. So I would go find these other guys in my school who would drink. And I said, like, hey, I want a drink. This is before my first drinking, you know. I'm already wanting to drink and I'm planning for it. And they said, like, well, we need money. I'm like, okay. And I would go and steal money from my parents. And I would take the money to them and they would take me to a bar and we drank. And that first day, me encountering alcohol, I remember everything about that day, man. I remember the details. Because see, I like to say, alcohol took me to a place where I couldn't go by myself. Today I live there without alcohol. So that's where I'm going to get to with my story. And yeah, you know, on the way back from the bar to where the school is, I'm walking through this gravel road, this country road, and there is puddles of water on the side. And I would jump in those puddles and splash water like a little kid. I was full of joy, you know. And then I was like, this is it. I'm going to drink. This is great. And then it started. I started drinking like crazy. At the age of 19, 20, I would wake up in the morning with my hands shaking. I was drinking to that degree by that age. I was away from my home state, you know, in a different part of India where I was studying, and every day I was drinking, man. And my story has two parts to it. So this is all happening, and then, you know, I became an atheist because I couldn't believe there is a God. Like, there isn't enough evidence, or like, it just, maybe there is, but then I started not really being able to believe it. And then the truth is, I wasn't even a nice atheist. You know, I was one of those douchebag atheists. Because, I would ask, like, some people would talk about God or whatever. And I would literally hold my coffee cup out. And I would say, like, if your God is real, have him fill this cup with coffee, and I would believe it. And they get pissed, and I had a lot of pleasure seeing them pissed when I say things like that. So, you know, it just a lot of pride involved in that being atheist thing. That's just my experience. I'm not saying all atheists are that way or anything. You know, there is an honest reason to not believe when you cannot. I totally get it. And so then at the age of 26, I went to see someone. Yeah, I'm kind of briefing everything, going brief with the story part. Yeah. Oh, please, by the way, the timer, give me 5 minutes warning. Yeah. Great, buddy. Yeah. So, yeah, at the age of 26, like Robert, thank you for your share, man. So I'm getting to a similar experience. So, you know, I'm 26 years old. I'm in this place where I'm trying to meet someone. He said, like, come tomorrow. There was some business deal between us. And I stayed in a model room, in a shitty model room, you know, not nice part or anything. And the reason I say this is important, not because I'm important, but the message is important. Anyways, yeah, I was in that model room. You know, I did something that I have done several times in my life, but for this very first time, I don't know why. I cannot explain it. I just felt this guilt and remorse and shame. Like in an incredible way. It weighed me down. The best way I can say is like it's like a wet, thick blanket was on me kind of thing. You know, I couldn't stand up. And I would look at the belongings in my room, like my suitcase and clothes and whatever, and I go like, "Wah!" Like everything I look at that belonged to me, I started doing that. And nothing comes out of my mouth. It's just this weird experience. And I started feeling this weight. And I thought I was going to go crazy, like I was going to go lose the balance of my mind. That's what I felt in that moment. So I was absolutely helpless. I knelt down on that dirty room, man, on that dirty floor. And I started crying. And I said, I have heard about this concept of this God who would take this burden away from me, who died for my sins, all that. And I literally said, like, I don't know how to pray or whatever. So I literally said, I don't know if I even believe that. But if that is true, I need it now. Because I absolutely need it. You know, and in that moment, man, someone just removed that weight off of me. The moment I said that. And I look back and say, he was in that room. And you know how you can feel the presence of someone without seeing? Like when someone walks into the room, behind you, you can feel someone is there. So anyways, that was my first encounter with this God, this higher power of mine. And that flipped my life upside down. You know, my sentiments was kind of similar to what they say in the book. Like, my sentiments was like, if this God showed up in my life in that critical point, I want to know more about him. So I started wanting to know more about God. I started going into that. And the reason I said the model room thing is this. I didn't encounter God in a room with stained windows and organs. You know, I experienced God in a shitty model room on a dirty floor when I was in the darkest place in my life. That's the God I know. You know, and you know, I would have more experiences with God and all this. At this time, I know nothing about Alcoholic Anonymous. I don't know anything about AA, you know. Eventually, this is a crazy thing. Without anyone telling me anything about it, for the next 7 years, I stopped drinking and smoking as a result of that encounter. Nobody told me anything. It just left. It just, that's what happened. And so anyways, eventually I would move to US, you know. I met my wife who is from here. She grew up in PV and Torrance. And anyway, we met in India, you know, we started dating for a very brief time and we decided to get married and everything. And I moved here. I started living here. Eventually, there would be wine and beer kind of things, very common with dinner and stuff, you know. So I would start drinking a little bit. I'm not thinking anything about this. I don't have this idea about alcohol at that point, you know. It's just a normal kind of drinking. And I would go to wine tasting in Temecula and stuff, you know, fancy, foofy stuff. They would bring the wine and tell you all kind of stories and how the grapes are grown and cheese and cracker and pairing. And so it's all cool, right? Well, not really. After a couple years of that going normal, I started drinking more and more. And now I'm going to dive bars. And now I'm not coming home in the night. I'm coming home at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. You know, my wife is waiting, all anxious and worried and fearing for me, you know, whether he's going to make home. Now it's going out of hand. I started drinking like crazy again. I went straight back to that alcoholic drinking. I lost all that connection with God and everything, you know. But God never changes. He doesn't change. Only we do. But anyway, so that kept going, and I like to say, you know, God stops us on the ramp, because that's my story. I was drinking at this place in Long Beach, and after having a lot of drinks, I decided to go home because I had to take kids to school in the morning. And the crazy thing is, man, what happens is, this little kid, when he was born, my oldest one, I remember holding that little kid in Torrance Memorial Hospital and being so grateful. And now that I'm drinking and all this into alcoholism, that very kid becomes a joy killer to me, That kid is something in my way. And my wife is a nag and joy killer. And now I cannot wait to drop them off at school so I can go drink. This is what is happening. And I remember things like, I would come in the night, walk through the hallway to go to my kid's room to kiss him goodnight, and I would stop halfway. Because I'm reeking of alcohol. I'm like, he's going to smell it, they are going to know kind of feeling, And in that moment, again, this guilt comes, this shame comes. But that is not enough. I would make 1,000 times decision to stop. Because I have high reason to stop at this point, Life is going out of hand. I'm experiencing all this. And I like to say, we don't experience powerlessness until we want to stop. Until then, we don't experience powerlessness. Because it's all fine, right? Or I'm still planning to continue to drink. But then comes a time where I really want to stop. And I make all these decisions, I'm done. And the next day comes, I'm drinking. The weekend comes, I'm drinking. The decision making is not working. And I like to read this part from the big book because I relate to it. This is on page 34. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever. Yet, we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. Yes, man, the necessity was great, the wish was great, but I didn't have the power. I just couldn't stop, no matter how hard I tried. So this one day I'm drinking, and I leave that place. I'm on the ramp to get on the freeway from Long Beach. And right on the ramp, right before getting onto the freeway, I still don't know what happened, but I drove over something or whatever the heck. The tire got popped. And somehow the car managed to move to the side. I'm sitting on the ramp itself and trying to call AAA. So I'm calling a bunch of numbers. I called a bunch of people. I'm so drunk. And they came, the cops, and knock on the window, and the whole shenanigan, DUI, all that. Of course, they ask oh, did you have drinks, sir? And I'm like, yeah, a little bit beer. But when they tested, I had 0.23. I was crazy drunk. Now, if I had gone on to that freeway, only God knows what would have happened. I don't know. But that's why I like to say God stops us on the ramp itself, my friend, right before you get on that. And this have happened many times in my life. God intervenes in our life in the right moment. He knows what's next. So then I get the DUI and everything, it's crazy. I had a dream an year before that DUI. And in that dream, I see myself drinking at a bar, and time to pay the bill, I take this ring, this very ring. I'm seeing this in the dream. I take this very ring off and pay the bill, and I look out the window, and I see my car that I had, literally had. But in the dream, I see the car, and the car is being towed away. And this was the dream, an year before DUI. And I didn't know how DUI works here. I don't know anything about that, Back home, if you get caught, you can say a couple names and give some money and get away with it. When I was doing it, not now. But so I don't know how DUI works. So anyways, now I get this DUI, So when I had the dream, I didn't understand the meaning. Now I'm at the holding prison place, and they are asking me to take my wallet and everything I had, and they're like, give the ring. And man, it hit me. I'm one of those guys who would never take this ring off. This is my wedding ring, and they asked me to take it off, and I felt it, and in that cell room, I again said, God, I understand now. And God started letting me understand the meaning of it. He's like, you gave up your relationship with me away. This ring, this wedding, and your relationship with your family for alcohol. And your car is your journey with me. You gave that away. And I'm like, okay, please give me another chance, right? And I would end up going to AA, part of doing the DUI thing, and I'm still not able to stop drinking. I really want to, but I don't have the power, man. And I kept going to a bunch of AA meetings, and then came again more incidents in my life where I'm like, I really need to stop. And then one of those days, I get up and I don't know how. I cannot explain it again. And I felt this remorse and guilt and shame again, and I'm like, I need help. I'm going to go ask someone to help me. And I walked into that AA meeting and I asked someone to sponsor me. I got a big book. I haven't had a drink ever since. It's been over 7 years now. And doing this 12 steps, it is not just about quitting drinking, man. It's much more than that. Because you see, if I'm drinking and using, I cannot have a relationship with God. Absolutely, I cannot pray or meditate when I'm drinking and using. It's just the beginning of it, to stop that. And I know it's pretty tricky when we bring this God topic, even in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. People get all worked up about it. And I totally get it. But, like in the big book, it says, deep down in us, man, there is this idea of God, and the interesting thing is, like, as long as I'm wrestling with that and not settling on it, I'm not going to be at peace. There is something about it. And I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Hindu, I'm not any of that. I don't go to temple or church or mosque, none of that. I just have a personal relationship with God. And, knowing about God is one thing, knowing God is a different thing. There is a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. And today I know God, and this, I say a lot of times, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, there is a God. Let's just say there is one, right? If there is a God who created the whole earth and heaven and everything, right? Would he prefer to live in a man-made building? Or would he rather live in something he created himself? You see, that's the idea of you and me are the dwelling place of God. Because, God created me with this thing called soul inside me, and that is made of a God material. And the crazy thing is, it's like the natural habitat. If you take a plant that grows in the tropical land and put it in the desert, it won't survive. It has to have that natural habitat. Well, God is my natural habitat. I say to people sometimes, like, our actual problem is that God created us. That is our actual problem. Because God created us, now we need to have that creator in our lives. It's like, one of my friends, Daniel, knows this guy, Emerson. He would say something like, we are like fish in the water looking for water. It's just crazy. This omnipresent power is all around us right here, wherever we go. And the most tragic thing is it's that near to us, and yet we don't know. We are not opened in our senses to it. And that's incredibly sad, thank you. And when AA talks about this whole higher power business, it says on page 45, this lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live. I really like that, because not a power by which we could just stop drinking, but a power by which we could live. You see, there is something wrong deep within me. I absolutely believe that there is nothing good dwells in me that is in my flesh. And when you do that fourth step, you will find out. Now, it's not just alcohol that I need the deliverance from. I need to be relieved from the bondage of self. Alcohol is just a symptom, and so is my character defects. If I follow the character defects, the root of it is the self. That's why I pray, relieve me of the bondage of myself. My soul is in prison with self. My soul needs to be taken out of the self, and deep in me, in that dwelling place of God, in my spirit, the soul has to join Him. There is a whole journey that takes place within me, not outside. My soul has to leave the self and go towards God within me. And it's just crazy experience. And, it would raise this question in the book, but where and how were we to find this power? This is a question on page 45, right? Well, you go to page 55, there is the answer. We found the great reality deep down within us. And, you are the dwelling place of God. If you would open up, you can have the communion with God, which is more than just quitting drinking. And I'm speaking from my own experience. What I have today is not, I don't drink anymore. What I have today is a happy, joyous, and free life. And what that means is I'm absolutely free from needs. When I have needs, I'm not free. You see, all my needs are met in my God. I'm absolutely free. I don't need one more thing in my life, one more person in my life. I absolutely don't. I'm completely content. Because in this power, I have everything I need. All my comfort, all my joy, all my peace comes from there. I like to say that which the world gives, the world will take away. If I'm happy because I have a promotion, when I don't have a promotion, I would be unhappy. When I'm happy because I have a car, when the car goes, I won't be happy. You see, God created me with an eternity within me. It's an eternal space. No matter how many temporal things I put in there, there is always space left. Only an eternal God can fill that. Once I have that, I'm good. I don't need this and that and this. I'm not in slavery to anything. That which the world gives, the world will take away. But that which He gives, that is within me, the outside world cannot take it away. The external things can be interrupted by the external things. But that which is in me won't be interrupted. Once my soul finds that communion within me with this power, I don't need one more thing, man. I don't need one more thing. That's freedom. That's freedom. And today, with the 12 steps, I'm something I say what I am. That dignity. God wants me to have that dignity, that honesty, to be able to live that which I say I am, to not be fake, to not be artificial. That's freedom, man. This is about freedom. It begins with freedom from alcohol and drugs, and it goes on. And it will set you free from your own freaking self. As long as my faculties are ruled by this thing called self, I'm still in bondage. This is a hierarchy shift. My faculties been ruled by my self-centeredness. My will and life is ruled by myself. And then it shifts. Now this God comes in. And I turn my life and will over to the care of God, right? That care of God is a key word. You're not just turning your will and life. It's not going anywhere. You're giving it to the care of God. It's like I have this fancy big car, but I don't know how to drive it. Every time I drive it, I'm running it into walls and driving it off the cliff. And so I'm finally realizing, I shouldn't be the one managing this thing. So I'm giving it to the one who can. Now, under his care, in his rule, in his dominion, it's used perfectly by him. That's the idea. Now my faculties, when it is ruled by him rather than myself, it's in the right hands. That's the right usage of the will. You will see this in the big book also, the right usage of will. And it's incredible. It's incredible. I will wrap with, do I have done? Okay. I'll tell you one story real quick. One day I was driving by this street near my house, and I saw this sanding machine and a table saw sitting in the rain, dirty, filthy, with a free sign. I drove past that, and I couldn't just get it rid of my head. I'm like, that thing is going to go to trash. That's a trash day. I couldn't help. I took my van, went back, picked it up, took it to my garage. And that sanding machine, I just took it apart, filthy, man. I took every parts out, started ordering new parts, cleaned it up, polished it up. And as I started taking it, all this dirt comes out, right? And I completely restored it. And the day I finished, I just put it there in the garage, and I kind of took a couple steps back, and I looked at it like this. And I was proud. And in that moment, God spoke to me. This is what God does. There is a question in the big book to the employees chapter. Is he worth salvaging? We are absolutely worth salvaging in God's eyes. And the crazy thing is, the moment I started taking it apart, all this dirt comes out. But guess what? That thing is mine now. The moment I picked it up and put it in my garage, that machine is mine. Even with all that dirt and filth coming out, it is still mine. It is in my garage. Because I know when this work is done, what it's going to be. I know. And when I finished, I saw it, and I was so proud of it. God sees us like that. When he starts working with us, when you go through that fourth and fifth and all that is going to come out. But remember, you are in his garage. You are his. He knows exactly where he's going to take you. Go through this journey, man. Go through this journey. You have great, amazing things ahead of you. That's the hope I can tell you. Just more than quitting drinking, you are going to be the most useful thing that you could be. Now that sanding machine I restored participates in every other restoration project I do. God is going to use you. Thank you for letting me share.